Am I disrespectful? I have been getting quite a few emails from people who write to me and say, Frida, you are so disrespectful. You go to the Hasidic Jewish community, this very pious, conservative enclave. You do YouTube videos about them, and you dress in pants as a woman. You wear short sleeves. You wear the color red. It is so disrespectful. And sometimes people will say, I want to know, why do you do it? And to contextualize for those who don't know or are new to my channel, I grew up in a very pious, conservative family, more conservative probably than the average Satmar Hasidic family in the village of Kiryas Joel, upstate New York, a very sheltered world where I lived the first 25 years of my life. I went to an all-girls school where I was educated in the community's values. I spoke Yiddish as a first language. I wasn't exposed to secular media. And of course, I wore modest clothing. Until I left the community, I had never worn pants. I always wore long sleeves, covered the collarbone. And when I got married, I covered my head and shaved my hair. And so I obviously am very intimately familiar with the modesty rules of the Hasidic community, which, yes, it is true, I violate. I have been out of the community since I was 25, and I was always interested since I left with my son. I have always felt very attached to my Jewish identity and very interested in continuing to grapple with the paradoxes of my Jewishness, of my people, of the world that I come from. And so I wound up being a tour guide in Brooklyn, including in Hasidic Williamsburg. And for the last 2+ years, I've also been doing YouTube videos about the Hasidic community. And I come to my work wearing secular clothing, so wearing pants and short sleeves. And you can see me that way in those videos. So generally, when people have been criticizing what I wore, I have been thinking, well, it's my body and I don't owe anyone an explanation. But I thought that I would do a video and unpack where I'm coming from. But I decided to do it simply because I thought it would be illuminating. It would be perhaps insight inducing to those who want to understand, to see where I am coming from behind the scenes, what my experience is like in a rather challenging place. But I am not doing this video because I want to, again, discuss and deliberate what I should be wearing. So I am hoping that you can appreciate that this video is not an invitation to, again, litigate and criticize what I'm wearing, but really just, if you're interested to hear me out, then I am going to put it all on the table. I'm going to do this video in 2 parts. There are 2 parts to my answer. One is about clothing in general when you visit the Hasidic community, not about me in particular, but when an outsider visits the Hasidic community, what does it mean to be disrespectful and what does it mean to be respectful? In the same way as before you visit maybe a Middle Eastern country, you might want to know what is respectful clothing. Before you visit a church, you want to know what does it mean to be respectful in the church? What does it mean for an everyday person to be respectful in the Hasidic community? The second part is about my personal connection to the question, because of course I'm not an everyday person. I am born and bred in this world. It is in my DNA. It is so deep in my soul. So in the second part, I'm going to speak to that. So, if you visit the Hasidic community, what is disrespectful? Well, this is a true story. It really happened a few years ago. The Belgian model Marissa Papen walked through Hasidic Williamsburg buck naked. Nothing. In some picture, she's wearing a trench coat and exposing herself. And she also has a Star of David of pornographic nature. I'm not going to go into it here because I don't want to offend my conservative viewers. And also, I'm afraid that YouTube will get me into trouble. So I'm going to show the very much blurred pictures of what happened, but it's all on my blog. And you can see she stands in the entryway of Flam's Appetizer, and there's a customer walking by her. So she's really in the middle of where there are people, and she's wearing nothing, a hat, stilettos. Later, she is at the other end of Lee Avenue, and she is right in front of a synagogue where a bunch of young Hasidic men are milling about. And that picture actually is on sale on the photographer's website for $17,000. Yes. And there's video footage, which you can see here, of the kerfuffle that happened as people were freaking out because she was walking around naked and she was lying to the cops that she wasn't. Anyway, Marisa Papan claims that she did this in order to raise awareness about the plight of women. Now, please forgive my cynicism, considering the vast amount of money that has been made out of this exploitative photography. I am not one to be easily convinced when someone bandies about the flag of feminism, and this is definitely one of those cases. What she did is truly completely disrespectful. I can guarantee you that you will not see me walking around Hasidic Williamsburg that way. But between what Marisa Papan did and wearing a burqa where we only see your eyes is an enormous chasm. And somewhere in that chasm is a sweet spot of what it means to dress modestly and respectfully. Actually, that sweet spot is not to imitate what the community itself wears. In fact, for Hasidic Jews, a very strong counterculture in the middle of New York City, clothing acts as a very important vehicle of signaling insider versus outsider status. The clothing creates identity in the middle of the melting pot. For the Hasidic community, language serves the same purpose. They speak Yiddish, which has been sort of sanctified, and its important sanctity is that it creates a distinct identity. And likewise, clothing, which is not always about modesty, is really about community cohesion, about differentiation between us and them. And so you, as the them, are not expected to dress in their clothing. You are expected, however, to not dress in ways that are considered provocative, especially sexually provocative. And this is not always explicitly emphasized as applying to women, but I would say it applies to women generally. So what is considered sexually provocative? To that, I would say look to what is actually asked of outsiders. Go to the shops in the neighborhood and you will see that they ask that you don't wear shorts, sleeveless, barefoot, crop tops, cleavage, essentially. It's really about not dressing in ways that are considered showing too much skin. In fact, the Hasidic community itself constantly brings outsiders into the community to work in various capacities as customers, just people living there. There are people in the medical fields, people in the cleaning fields, and people working in the shops. Those will be wearing pants, short sleeves, but they will be asked to not bear too much skin and not to wear very fitted clothing. I think it's mostly about not bearing too much skin, and there's absolutely no expectation on covering here. As a tour guide, therefore, I ask of my tourists to dress respectfully, and by which I emphasize that they should not be wearing sleeveless tops and shorts. And I would say we blend into the neighborhood and we generally are okay. Now, there are actually bus tours that come through the neighborhood. They have nothing to do with me. I have nothing to do with bus tours that don't give any instructions for people for what to wear when they come to Hasidic Williamsburg. And I know this because I've asked around. I've spoken to people who were on the tours. And they will disembark from the buses in the middle of 90-degree summer wearing very little. Short shorts and a little crop top with like string straps and This upsets many people in the community. And I know this because I hear a lot of the frustration. But the way I walk through the neighborhood, I don't think I create any problems. If I wasn't ex-acidic, if I wasn't so-and-so's daughter, if I wasn't from this world, people wouldn't bat an eyelash. And I feel like that is a very fair compromise. That said, after all, I come from this world. Why don't I just put on a skirt to come to visit the acidic communities? It's so hard. Do I have to throw it in their faces? After all, there's so much symbolism with the fact that I come to this community to work. Shouldn't I make an effort to wear modest clothing when I visit? To this, I want to say, first of all, I do have long sleeves and cover the collarbone. I have skirts, I have tights, and I will wear them when I visit family. I will wear them when I go to weddings. To date, I have not worn pants to a wedding. But when I put on that clothing, I feel like I symbolically code switch into insider status. I put on a costume that says, I am one of the community. I didn't leave. I am one of us. And my true journey, the real place I am in my life, is not something we will acknowledge. Clothing is a very powerful vehicle of expressing identity. If you are a nurse, just putting on the scrubs changes your sense of self. You embody the nurse's mode. If you put on evening clothing, that changes your sense of self. For me, having been raised with such a strong identity associated with modest clothing, to put it on is to put on that old self. And that old self means that I will withhold a lot. I will not bring a lot of myself into the relationship because I feel like I don't want to offend. I feel like expectations have been set that I'm not offensive. And I feel like there's a don't ask, don't tell situation. And that's okay. Some relationships don't have room for your full self. I think that's normal in life, especially in complicated situations. And I am fine with that. I'm extremely grateful for the distance that a lot of people in my life go for me to try to accept me as best as they can. And I feel like I go a distance as well. And that involves a lot of compromises. And I am fine with that. But when I started to work as a tour guide, I made the decision to free myself from that insider convention and to fully embody my new self by wearing Western clothing. It was a very intentional decision to allow myself the freedom to be honest about who I am and to not feel like I am pressured to stick to what is okay by the community's standards. We live in a world of so much hatred, so much division, so much animosity between people who don't agree with each other. And I feel very strongly that the antidote to this incredible anti-Semitism, dehumanizing of religious minorities is nuanced, honest knowledge. It is empathy, humanism, but also integrity. And I feel that I am in this unique position where I can tell a true story and also a story that comes from love that can help show the humanity of people who are often seen as different and weird. I don't believe that the solution to anti-Semitism is for a rabbi to scream from a mountaintop that the community is beautiful and perfect and everyone is happy and all criticisms are just coming from haters and anti-Semites. Maybe that kind of saccharine propaganda works on some. It never works on me, and so I don't believe in it. I believe in honesty. I believe in conversations that come from a loving place, but don't shy away from the hard things. And with the Hasidic community, one of the hard things about this world, I would say it's one of those things that I found especially hard, is that it's a world where there's a lot of social pressure to conform, to not pick your head up and say something that maybe is controversial, to not criticize the world. And some of that is informed by anti-Semitism, a lot of legitimate concerns that inform it, but also a lot of social pressure where people know that if they have something to say, you grumble it on the down low, but saying something out loud can cause you to be a pariah. There is a lot of mechanisms of pressuring people to step in line. Like a lot of people talk to me very candidly, but they will not do it on the camera. I see that a lot. When I think of the Hasidic community, I think of the Japanese proverb that if a nail sticks out, you gotta bang it in. Kind of like you shouldn't. I'm sure you guys know what that proverb is about. It's about you shouldn't draw attention to yourself. If you draw attention to yourself, then you should be put back in your place. And that kind of culture is definitely something I see and I experience a lot. And so there is a lot of pressure to not say controversial things. And that pressure can be especially effectively applied to insiders. It is much harder to tell outsiders to what to do because the mechanisms of conformity work within the community. Most of it, I would say, is about shaming, but it's also about careers. It's about work. For instance, if I say something that is problematic, I feel like I could start to have problems in maybe my work relationships in the community and with marriage prospects. I was very, very determined to free myself from those pressures, of which I am actually sensitive on a personality level because I don't like to be controversial. I don't like to offend. I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm not the kind of person who wants any malice. I really, really don't have that kind of skin. And I battle with how to be honest, how to have a dialogue, how to assert myself and express my views when I am so sensitized to those conformist pressures. And my clothing has always been an important vehicle of releasing myself to some degree from those pressures. And when I made the decision to come to the Hasidic community dressed in pants, dressed in jeans, I didn't expect people to roll out the red carpet and applaud me. I didn't expect embraces. I understood that a lot of people won't like it. And it was terrifying at first. It was hard. It was lonely. And over my 10 plus years as a tour guide, it hasn't always been easy. Most people have left me alone, but there were times that I had to ask people to stop bothering me. And I understood why people would be frustrated with me. Even in general, a lot of people believe that any attention to the community is a problem and they don't agree with what I do. I can see where they're coming from. I think their criticism is legitimate, but I don't subscribe to that. I think it's not working. I think keeping their heads down is not effective at benefiting the communities. We've seen what's happened with the education issue. I think there needs to be a demystification. That's my feeling, but I understand that people see it differently and will say we don't want an ex-Hasidic woman in our neighborhood speaking for us. We don't want her doing interviews. We don't want to participate in any of that, and we don't like that she's ex-Hasidic. People will tell me, you got to come back. You got to start observing the rules again, and I understand that. That's completely par for the course. That's to be expected. That's totally okay. I'm okay with that challenge. I can deal with it. And I knew going in that that was going to be a part of it. And it has been. It has been. But I will say that while I didn't sign up for this with any intention to make friends and be liked, I have had a mind-bogglingly beautiful experience in my work. I started doing this absolutely terrified with every tour that I'll be run out of town, that people will harass me. And over time, as people figured out who I was, that I'm from the community, that I'm Inzida, they started to speak to me in Yiddish. They started to come up to me to ask me how it's going. And slowly I got to know familiar faces. They'd ask after my family. I'd ask after theirs. If there was something going on in the community, they'd come up to me to speak to me about it. People would tell me if there was something interesting happening anywhere. People would tell me, there's zealots on the street corner over there. Maybe you don't want to go over there with your tour. This is going on over there. You should go check it out. And with time, I started to feel like people were treating me in the way a small town community would treat their regular locals, looking after each other, being friendly, being kind, just small, little, not excessive acts of generosity. During COVID, I went through a very hard time. I didn't have work for many months. I didn't have any income. I was incredibly distraught and stressed. And I wasn't in the community for many months. And when I returned, to my absolute surprise, wherever I went, people came out of their shops. People went out of their way to come up to me to ask me, how am I doing? Is everyone well in my family? Is everyone okay? Did anyone suffer terribly? Am I okay financially? Do I have work? How do I support myself? Is everything going okay with my son? There was such a simple, sweet, unassuming generosity. This wasn't when I was doing front-facing work. They had no idea what I was doing on my tours. This was when I was a nobody giving tours. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have any presence. They didn't know what I was doing. It was simply kindness. And I had this feeling that, yes, this community has its flaws. There are all sorts of issues. There is, of course, a lot of judgment, and there are so many problems. But there are so many people with just big, beautiful hearts who try in life to be kind. And I've had this experience because of my clothing. Because if I was coming to the neighborhood in modest clothing, then yes, the generosity would have been nice, but I would have taken it as par for the course. The fact that people went to the effort of being kind, despite our tremendous differences, despite our disagreements, despite their disagreement of how I live my life, despite their belief that I let my family down or they might not like what I'm doing with my work. The fact that despite all of that, they see what I'm wearing. They still are so sweet. I feel like it's been a truly special experience. And it was made possible by I feel like a little bit of chutzpah on my end to wear what is not provocative, but is maybe a little pushing the envelope. And also a desire for honesty and to see the good side in people. So that's really why I wear what I wear, and I don't intend to change it, but who knows what the future holds. We'll see. Well, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the comments. Bye-bye.